He gave the extraterrestrial girl a towel, but her response left him stunned. The ship's warning systems blared as Axel Morgan struggled to prevent his ship from permanently altering Terrace's dusty environment. 9. As he struggled with the controls, his sweat trickled down his brow, his muscular, "Come on, baby, just a little further," he whispered as his form tightened against the sudden shuddering of the cockpit. The trading post, now a dilapidated collection of buildings, was evident with his light brown hair stuck to his forehead. That appeared to have been put together using the leftover parts of a dozen different spacecraft. It wasn't much, but it beat, crashing in the open desert. The ship entered a hazardous situation when its port thruster failed with a sputtering cough. Spin. Axel's hands flew over the control panel, using the thrusters that were still operational to compensate. His jaw tightened as he defied gravity and physics, using his years of knowledge to stay alive. He was thrown against his shackles by a bone-jarring impact as the ship skidded across the hard pan, kicking up a huge crimson dust plume before coming to a stop outside the trading post. "Shit!" or music Axel moaned, massaging he unfastened, himself sustaining a wounded shoulder. A brief systems check verified what he already knew: he wouldn't be departing Terrace 9 in the near future. The substantial damage included fried navigation systems, a tiny crack in the fuel containment cell, and a burst thruster. He reached for his before the hatch was opened. Hot, dry air surged in via emergency pack and blaster. Squinting against the intense sunlight, Axel studied his surroundings while bearing the odor of dust and machine oil. When viewed up close, the trade station appeared even more dilapidated. A number of pre-existing buildings and converted a small group of interested people watched as shipping containers crowded close, as if they were terrified of the huge desert surrounding them. Most of the spectators were aliens of various species, and none of them appeared especially pleasant. But none of them were grabbing for weapons. Nice, a rough-voiced, muscular, four-armed extraterrestrial with leathery orange skin shouted out, "Landing!" would appear like a smile, exposing rows of sharp teeth. You were able to avoid striking anything significant. "I am Dra, the hole's unofficial harbor master," and Axel leaped from his ship. Axel Morgan landed with the practiced ease of someone accustomed to many gravity conditions. Engine issue. "Any possibility of locating parts nearby?" Dra made a noise. That could have been laughter. "Areas on target duas." "You're a humorous person, but Merck's junkyard may have." He pointed to the center, saying, "Something you can jury-rig. In the meantime, you'll want a drink and a place to stay. Your greatest option is the rusty bolts at the trade post. It's only 50 clicks away." Slinging his rucksack over his shoulder, Axel murmured, "Thank you. Any direction." "Lead the way." The rusty bolt, a squat, corrugated metal structure that appeared to have been welded together, was true to its name, by a blind guy during an earthquake. It was dark inside, and the scent of unclean bodies and alien liquor was strong. The dispersed area was inhabited by a group of miners, drifters, and what Axel was certain were pirates. Someone whispered, "Fresh meat," as he walked in. But Axel didn't hear it because he had been in the secret was to keep your hand close to your weapon and act as though you belonged in harsher places. He headed to Bar A. Slab of metal that could have been a ship's hull. The bartender, an insectoid creature with several eyes, clicked. Axel questioned its mandibles. "Whatever's least likely to kill a human," Axel noticed the bartender setting, a credit chip on the counter as he turned to make his drink. A slim figure slid between the tables with a tray of beverages. Even in the low light, her skin shone with a striking emerald green that stands out sharply against her flowing silver white. The natural grace with which she moved seemed out of place in the dirty cantina. Axel, a humanoid woman unfamiliar with her race, brought drinks to a group of unkempt aliens. "Why so cold today, sweet thing?" she asked as she went to leave, but a scarred Krex with a prosthetic eye grabbed her wrist. Pulling her closer, the crack mumbled, "Sit on my lap for a while." Axel noticed strain in her shoulders, despite her expression remaining neutral. "Please release me, Gorn. I have other customers." "They can wait," Gore snarled, his grasp tightening. His friends chuckled, supporting him, and Axel's jaw tensed. He had witnessed this situation unfold on 100 different worlds, and he knew that the server never fared well. Should take care of himself? He was trapped on a strange world with few resources and a broken ship. He didn't need to get involved in local conflicts, but damn it, there were certain things that were universal and were among them. He gulped down his drink, which tasted like battery acid and turpentine, and pushed it away. "Excuse me," he began as he approached the table, drawing everyone's attention. Included the green-skinned woman's shocked, iridescent ones, which she urged you to release. Gorn's robotic eye worried as it concentrated on Axel, studying him from head to head as silence descended among the surrounding tables. The Krek snarled, "Mind your own business, human." "This is between me and the girl," Axel shrugged, keeping his posture informal while calculating distances, as well as angles for the inevitable fight. "You see, that's where you're mistaken. When you put your hands on, you make it everyone's business to touch someone who doesn't want to be touched." The woman's eyes flickered and enlarged. Before her, face smoothed out, there was a flash of surprise and optimism. Gore let go of her wrist once more and grew slowly, towering over Axel by at least His partner dispersed into a loose semicircle, and the cantina became quieter as customers moved. "To obtain a better view. We do this to observe or to be out of the possible line of fire." When people on Terrace 9 asked him in a dangerously quiet voice, Axel grinned in the manner that grin that never made it to his eyes. "Let me assume something terrible and unimaginative." Axel effortlessly evaded the initial punch, which came just as he had anticipated, a telegraphed right hook. He responded with a finding the soft place right below the ribs, where the majority of humanoid species store important organs, was a painful stab to Gorn's stomach. Axel moved with experienced efficiency as the Kreks doubled over with a wheezing gasp, and chaos ensued. He exploited his surroundings and the size of his opponent against them, smashing one alien into a table, using another as a shield, and used a chair against the third with catastrophic results. His years of experience in harsh spaceports served. He wasn't the biggest or strongest, but he was quick and filthy. Gorn and his crew won the battle. Axel stood in the middle of the devastation, breathing heavily, but otherwise unscathed save. For his knuckles were split, and his jaw would eventually develop a striking bruise. The cantina was silent for a while before conversations gradually picked back up, and customers returned to their beverages as though nothing had happened. It seems that the bar fights weren't uncommon enough to demand prolonged attention. The key woman with the green skin came up to him, those beautiful eyes examining him with fresh curiosity. Up close, her features were even more remarkable, a straight nose, high cheekbones, and now with her big lips and nose squeezed into a narrow line. "Of concern," she murmured. "That was incredibly stupid." Axel winced as he stretched his muscles, ignoring the reprimanding tone Gorn uses for Captain Vex. "They'll come after you now. You're welcome, damaged hand." A faint smile flickered across her lips and disappeared. He consented and gave her a name, but she hesitated. "I didn't ask for your assistance, and you didn't. Nara, you've just made yourself the most sought guy on Terrace 9, a stranger named Axel Morgan." He nodded a little, looked at the moaning pirates, wondering how long it would be before their companions arrived. Nara surveyed the cantina before, bending closer. "Axel, you should go immediately." Nara's face grimaced. "My ship is damaged, and I won't be going anywhere for a while. Calculation took the place of caution, therefore you'll need a hiding place till I'll end my shift in an hour so you can fix it. Meet me behind the cantina." Before he could reply, she disappeared, scuttling between the tables as though nothing had occurred. Axel watched her leave, Unsure if he had been tricked or simply offered assistance, but with few other choices, he tossed some extra pays the pub for the damage and proceeded to wait through the back door. The desert air quickly chilled as Terrace 9's. As the sun set, Axel leaned against the cantina's back wall, one hand comfortably resting close to his blaster. He didn't readily trust people, particularly on backwater planets where betrayal was frequently just another kind of she-NRA snuck away through the creaking back door after changing out of her service attire, slacks and a form-fitting jacket that embraced her slim figure. Axel saw the tiny bag slung over her shoulder, silhouette of what appeared to be a weapon under her jacket. "You're still here," she remarked, sounding a little taken aback. "Not," he shrugged. "I have a lot of places to go, but I'm beginning to question whether waiting for the woman who might be my best move was to lead me into a trap." A smile briefly appeared on her face, displaying teeth that shine brilliantly. "Against her green skin, I would have simply let Gorn handle it if I had wanted you dead." Axel pushed himself off the wall, so it's fair point. "What's the plan, Nera?" Looked around her silver-white hair, which caught the dim light coming from the windows of the cantina. "Not here," she said. "Follow me and keep quiet." She guided him through a tangle of little passageways that were lined with temporary homes and storage containers. The trading post had concealed pockets of life tucked away from the main thoroughfares, making it larger than it had looked from the air. At times, they came across extraterrestrial beings of different kinds, who gave Nera a nod while casting suspicious looks at Axel. Axel whispered, "Popular girl," on the third such encounter. "I've been here a while," she said without further explanation. Eventually, they arrived to the edge of the world, where Axel's wrecked ship lay like a wounded animal, and Nera went up to it. She ran her palm instinctively over the charred hole. Tarsian model, strong engineering, but the proper pre-galactic alliance. These items were constructed to... She tapped an area close to the damaged thruster last time. "Your issue isn't as awful. As it appears, the cooling systems were hacked and the motivators fried." Yet the Axel arched an eyebrow. "You know ships. I know a lot of things." "Core is intact." Nera looked him in the eye. "Prior to giving handsy pirates drinks, I was an... What happened to the engineer on a Venturi cruiser?" Her face clouded. "Captain, this is where I landed up after Vex stormed our ship, slaughtered anyone who opposed him and sold the rest of us to the highest bidder. I'm sorry." "Don't be, I survived." Axel felt a wave of rage on her behalf. She turned. "I can fix this when we get back to the ship, but we'll need good parts, not garbage. They sell at Merck's scrapyard, therefore I assume that Vex's ship is the only source of those parts." The Scourge, Vex's cruiser, has a keen smile, and Nera was a quick learner. "It docks here every 2 weeks to deliver supplies and collect protection money from the residents. It's all we need. Due tomorrow, and you wish to plunder it?" "I wanted passage, not a question." "Off this rock," she said. "You help me escape Vex, and I'll help you fix your ship." It seems reasonable that Axel observed her attempt. He knew there was more to her story than the calm veneer, yet he couldn't deny he needed her knowledge. Finally, he answered, "Deal, but we'll need somewhere to hide out till tomorrow." Nera nodded. "I have a place. It's not much, but it's secure." Her place ended up being a repurposed storage area on the trading post's far side. It was compact but surprisingly cozy, with the majority of the space was taken up by a living area that served as a kitchen, a small bathroom, and what looked to be a workshop. She whispered, "Home, sweet home," letting her luggage fall to a table covered in tools and machinery. "Make yourself well. I'll see what I can make for supper." Axel found himself observing her as she walked about the tiny room. Her, with increasing curiosity, her motions were confident and efficient. The green hue of her skin suggested that she had evolved to live, appeared to abruptly change depending on the lighting, sometimes becoming deeper and other times appearing nearly luminous. "You're staring," she observed, not raising her gaze from the food she was cooking. "Sorry," an oracle said. Feeling especially guilty, Vidian responded, "Your species, I don't think I've encountered it before." "We're not. It suits you," he replied, referring to the name Vidian. "Common in this sector. Most of my people live in the Emerald Nebula systems." Her iridescent eyes flashed up with a hint of amusement. "Is that your effort at flirting with a human? Would it succeed if it—" She had a surprising and melodic chuckle. "You're either really courageous or really stupid. Axel Morgan, you're attempting to win over the most dangerous pirates in the industry after you just made enemies with them," he replied, his voice sharpening. "You're not property, and I've made enemies of far terrible than Vex. Something changed in her face, maybe a softening or a reassessment. You'll need to share those stories with me at some point. They consumed a basic supper of reconstituted protein, and, if we live tomorrow, I will." As they conversed, Axel learnt more about Terrace 9 and the hold Vex had on him. The native veggies tasted better than he had anticipated. Nara talked quietly and passionately about the pirate captain's brutality over the trading post, and Axel started to recognize that her wish to flee extended beyond her own independence. As the evening drew on, the tiny room appeared to become more private. Their discussion flowed naturally, interspersed with charged quiet in which their gazes would lock and remain for an excessive amount of time. Their attraction was evident, and Axel grabbed Nara's wrist as she stood up to clear their plates, and the electric charge became stronger every hour. Gently, in contrast to Gorn's vicious hold earlier, she froze, gazing down at his tan fingertips on her emerald complexion, created an oddly lovely contrast with her skin. "Thank you," he continued. "Just for the food and the assistance, don't thank me yet," to which she responded in a voice, "We still need to survive tomorrow, therefore it's even more important that we don't waste today." Her eyes met his. She must have been satisfied with whatever she found there because she put the dishes down slowly and approached. "Humans," she said, using her thin, direct fingers to trace the contour of his jaw. "Is it a issue?" he asked, his heart pounding at her touch. "No," she replied, bending closer. The kiss, when her breath blended with his, "It's refreshingly honest," was hesitant at first, a boundary test, and then it seemed like a dam had burst. Axel drew her in as it intensified into something ravenous and pressing. The way she felt against him, the little distinctions between them that made every touch an adventure as they headed for their bodies came together in the dim light of the little bed in the corner, shedding clothing and inhibitions with equal zeal. An ancient dance that was later recognized for its special fusion of human and Vidian, Axel discovered them curled up in sheets close to his head, lying on his chest. He believed that this relationship had been worthwhile, despite the risks that might arise tomorrow. Dawn broke. Axel woke up to the glaring brightness of Targus 9, which is characteristic of desert worlds. Discover Nara already up, studying something on a portable computer pad, her slim figure silhouetted against the window. He kept thinking about what had happened the night before, the surprising connection the way her emerald skin had, the unexpected softness of her lips on his seemed to gleam in the darkness. "Morning," he whispered, his voice hushed. "You humans sleep deeply," she said with a tiny smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "I've been planning our suicide mission for hours on end." He ran a hand and sat up. She threw the datapad to him and said, "Something like that. The plague docked an hour ago, and I've mapped Axel, examined the schematic, and was impressed by her thoroughness. This is the most likely location for the parts we require." She acknowledged that she had given it a lot of thought before and that she had never had a compelling reason to take the chance until now. "To be clear, we are receiving parts for my spacecraft," in her tone that caused him to look up. "I should be aware of Nara's hidden motivations. yet I hesitated long enough to climb off this rock together. She ultimately stated that the parts are the priority in order to validate his suspicions. But I'm listening. There's more about Vex that you should know. She shifted to a seat. There's history there. Vex and I were on the bed next to each other, close enough for him to feel the warmth emanating from her body. Axel had a knot in his stomach, but he wasn't only my captor. What type of he is my half-brother, and of everything she could have said, that was... Maybe the last thing Axel expected was you, your brother. How can that be? You're not... Despite being of the same species, my father had distinct moms. A diplomat who traveled widely, he made plans with women on a number of realms. Although she spoke in a matter-of-fact manner, Axel could sense the underlying pain. Vex is part Tauran and half-human. You're half-human, and I'm half-Vidian. Axel couldn't contain his astonishment. She nodded. I believe there's something familiar about you that drew me in. Her fingers made a pattern on his arm that reflected the way you move and think. Way you feel. Axel's perspective of her changed after learning this. The bond he had felt with her wasn't only physical attraction, but there was also a deeper recognition on a deeper level. Vex despises his human ancestry, and Nera. He spent his life demonstrating that he is not like our father and you, her, and he still despises what he perceives as its weakness. I have dedicated my life to emulating the finest aspects of both, my mother's people and my own history. Respect, harmony, and relationships. My father was a good man. Principled like you, Axel whispered quietly. Her cheeks deepened even more. Emerald, we must prepare because the plague never remains moored for very long. While gathering weapons and tools in peaceful solitude, Axel couldn't help but observe Nero as she strolled about the tiny room, seeing her now through the prism of her disclosure. The elegance he had given to her extraterrestrial everything made more sense now, including the straightforwardness and nature that had surprised him. Their plan was straightforward but dangerous. Using with Axel's battle background and Nera's familiarity with the ship, they would sneak inside the deck during the crew's routine visit to the cantina, find the pieces they need, and get out before anyone notices. The trading. As they approached the docking port, the station was abnormally crowded, and Vex's crew,